Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is Milan-Sanremo 2025. As you guys know, I have been covering this and talking about the tactics that we can see from all of the favorites right here when we're talking Tadej Pogačar with UAE team Emirates, Mathieu van der Poel, Mads Pedersen, Tom Pidcock. Can he do something? Can Filippo Ganna pull a big-time result here at Milan-Sanremo? He's gone podium already. But you know I have been covering and talking about Milan-Sanremo and building it up to this Saturday epic first monument of the 25 season for a good reason. And it is not going to let us down. If you didn't have time to watch 289 kilometers of basically flat roads until you get about 70 kilometers to go when it starts getting really exciting, you certainly want to go back and watch the last 70K. I cannot do it justice. It's going to be a magnificent, a classic above all classics is today's Milan-Sanremo. Now, when the racing starts, as I already told you, 289 kilometers of flat start all the way until you summit with about 150 kilometers to go. That's the Torcino. Once you summit that, you drop down, it gets twisty and technical, and then you drop onto the coast, and then it's going to get crazy along the coast once you get into 70 kilometers to go. When the cameras come on proper, well, they come on before the race even starts, and we see everybody's cold, it's wet, it's miserable here in Italy, but at least it doesn't seem to be extremely windy, so it isn't the kind of race that can cause a bunch of chaos. That's why when we see all the racers roll out in the neutral section, everybody's dressed up tight and warm. You see Tadej Pogačar wearing the rain jacket. Once they get to kilometer zero, there's a little bit of hesitation from the official in the car there before he blows the whistle a few hundred meters later. Once he does, his attacks start happening right away. We see with 15 kilometers into the race, 3 riders are going up the road. They're going to get joined by another 4 riders to put 7 up there. And then we're going to see Christian Sabragli there jump across from Vinny Fattini. He's the last rider to join this group, and his teammate's going to drop back and grab him to close the last 25 seconds. That means we got 8 riders up here in the breakaway to start Milan-Sanremo. Those 8 riders is Liber from Arkea Samsic, his teammate Alessandro Baptiste is there from Lotto Destiny. We see Mark Stewart is the other Fattini rider up there along with Tommaso. And then we see Martin Marcellucci up there along with the young kid, 19 years of age, Filippo Turconi. Now with these 8 riders, they're driving. We go back and look at the peloton. There's only one guy on the front. That's Sylvain Dillier from Alpecin de Koenig. Now Sylvain Dillier is going to ride the front for a long time solo. What's helping him is when we go back to the videos and beyond the coverage, and I told you with the tailwind, it's easier for riders to stay out there and win because they don't have that full headwind, and so one rider could do a ton of work. That's why we see Sylvain Dillier up there is the only rider running on the front. He's going to let this gap start extending up to about 5 minutes, and we saw almost 6 before he got on the front, but now it's dropping down to about 5, and we come into the Torcino, and you see there's a little bit of stress on this first mountain climb here of Milan-Sanremo, and it starts going curb to curb. They go over the top of the climb. The peloton is, as the group of 8 already went over in front of them at about 2.5 minutes. Now we look at the peloton going over the top, and we see it's Lidl Trek on the front. They haven't touched the front throughout this whole race, but now they're going on the front just to keep Mads Pedersen in a good position through the technical, still wet and messy roads. Once we see the breakaway of 8 start getting on the coast with about 140 kilometers to go, they're starting to dry out now here at Milan-Sanremo. We see Lidl Trek lead all the way into the coast too, and then they'll pop off the front, and it's time for Sylvain Dillier there to get on the front again for Alpecin de Koenig. The time gap starts creeping its way back up from about 2.5 minutes up to about 3 minutes, and then you start seeing the breakaway riders up there. When we're talking about the Lotto Destiny rider, he starts taking off his jacket, and if I rewind the film a couple times, this kid, Baptiste, he had 3 jackets on today's race. So he took off one earlier, one after that. This is the last and final jacket that he's wearing that he takes off. Once he does, you know right now conditions are starting to get exciting, and it looks like it's a great day for racing. Now we come into 120 kilometers to go. I'm watching Eurosport on Flow Bikes, and I'm listening to the 2 knucklehead commentators telling me what happened at the end of the women's race at Milan-Sanremo. Why do they want to spoil Milan-Sanremo for me? If I'm watching Milan-Sanremo, the men's edition, don't you think I might be interested enough to watch the women? Well, they spoiled it for me and told me the winner. I won't do it for you guys. But Sylvain Dillier still on the front of the peloton now driving. We get into about 90 kilometers to go. Sylvain Dillier looks over his shoulder over at Lidl Trek, and he's asking for some help. He gets the head shake there of the first rider from Lidl Trek saying, nope, it's all you. At this moment, Lidl Trek's MO is to keep their guys as fresh as they possibly can because they know they're not worried about the breakaway riders in front. But Sylvain Dillier continues to ride the front. Guys, he's been on the front for kilometer after kilometer throughout the whole start of this race, and he's still driving it all the way into about 70 kilometers to go before he finally gets on the radio and pulls off, and now it's going curb to curb, and it starts getting nervous. As it starts getting nervous, we start coming up to the capo climbs with 53 kilometers to go, and we'll see the first rider from the break dropped. That's Tommaso there as he gets dropped for Vini Fatini. He's the first guy to come out, leaves the 7 guys up there, and the time gap's down to about 2.5 minutes. The peloton's going curb to curb. It has been crazy nervous right now. Once they hit the first of the capo climbs here, we see the first real crash here at Milan-Sanremo, as we see Lawrence Pithy go down for Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, and Nielsen Paulus goes down for EF Education. That's going to cause these guys a little bit of headaches, but they'll find their way back up as the camera quickly finds Jasper Philipsen, last year's winner here at Milan-Sanremo. He's got some issues, and he's getting a wheel change right now with a push from the mechanic. It'll take him about 3 kilometers before he gets back up to the front as we start coming up over the next of the capo climbs. Now, once we come into the third capo climb, it's time for the breakaway to start going nuclear, because now we see Marcellucci there throw in his attack. Once he throws in attack, the break blows up in pieces, and we got one guy with about a 1 minute 15-second gap on the group behind. We start looking at the peloton back there at different moments, and Del Toro, Isaac Del Toro for UAE team members, who I told you in previous videos is the crucial member for UAE team members, Tadej Pogačar, and he's always up in the right places as we've gone up and over the final capo climb. Once we see Marcellucci come down into the town, as he dodges through the narrow buildings there and through the roundabouts, he'll come out, and you know the peloton's going to be fighting full gas coming through the neighborhood here. Once they come out, it's time for curb-to-curb action again. Now, UAE team members have done a fine job. Ineos have been spectacular throughout 70 kilometers all the way into about 35 kilometers to go. Once they've been curb to curb, they always have Geraint Thomas on the front selling out for his teammate Filippo Ganna, one of the big-time favorites here at Milan-Sanremo. With the peloton going curb to curb and the exciting building up, we're going to see Julian Alaphilippe with about 32 kilometers to go. He flies up on the left side there of Mathieu van der Poel and gets a little bit close as the curb comes inward and the road bends a little bit to the left. Julian Alaphilippe slots just past Mathieu van der Poel there and apologized just afterwards. We look over to the right of the peloton, and it's Tadej Pogačar that was bumping with Gregoire there from FDJ. Both riders, Mathieu van der Poel and UAE team members Tadej Pogačar, of course, hold everything up. We start coming in about 30 kilometers ago. It's still curb to curb. UAE Team Emirates is on the right. Del Toro still looking in good position. And we see Mathieu van der Poel's got Xandro Mayus in the middle of the peloton there as he's starting to come up. He's going to squeeze over to the right side of the road. That's going to cause some chaos there for UAE Team Emirates as Alpecin de Koenig are squeezing right. Then once the turn backs off just a little bit, it opens up and you see Tim Wellens and Niels Paulette starts punching it at the front of the peloton. Up front, Marcellucci's holding just a little bit of a gap on the peloton back there that's going Mach speed, and we're coming up to the Cipressa, the first and major point here at Milan-Sanremo. Now, as Marcellucci's looking back over his shoulder, you see the peloton's fully on his heels, but once we get the aerial view, it's a hard right turn, and now UAE team members are getting pinched off. We see Tadej Pogačar's a little bit over from the right side of the road. I'll call it about five bike widths over to the right side, to the left side of the right of the road, but he's a little bit trapped behind Alpecin de Koenig, and I don't see very many UAE Team Emirates riders in good position. Now, we kind of lose the view because we start coming through the right, followed by the left, and the quick exit of the coast road here to start the Cipressa proper, and we see Marcellucci there has held off the peloton to start it proper. But what's happening? Hot on his heels, we see EF Education and Ineos have made second and third with Filippo Ganna in third position. The peloton comes flying through here, but as we start to look at the back of the peloton, there's a crash back there that's holding up everyone here at the back of Milan-Sanremo. Up front, now we see Tim Wellens is starting to drill it. I backed the picture up just a hair. What happened to Tadej Pogačar? Guys, he's coming out in about 40th, 50th position, and so's Mads Pedersen. But we look up front. Tim Wellens is up there for UAE Team Emirates. He knows what the team plan was in the meeting in the bus before Milan-Sanremo started, so he's starting to drill it. I don't like this tactic. Tim Wellens going full stick. He's looking back over his shoulder. Tadej Pogačar is in big time trouble. But guess what? Mathieu van der Poel is not. He's right up at the front, and he's got some company up there because Jasper Philipsen made it up in this front group too, but Jasper Philipsen's going to start pulling out soon. As we look, Mathieu van der Poel is in good spot. Filippo Ganna's in good spot. And Tudor Cycling have two riders sitting at the front here. We start looking over to the left side of the road as the climb starts proper. Julian Alaphilippe's flying off the left side of the road. Julian Alaphilippe's always doing something crazy. He's about 10, 15 spot back there. As he's off the road, he'll jump back on and keep the bike upright, of course, because it's Julian Alaphilippe. But Tadej Pogačar now is sitting about 16th position, and Narvaez is up and around the position of Tadej Pogačar. But Tim Wellens is not backing off for his team leader here. He's going full gas. Now, why don't I like this plan? Even though in the team bus they said Tim Wellens go full gas. They said Tim Wellens go full gas, but Tadej Pogačar is not here. Narvaez and Tadej Pogačar are too far back. There's no way Tim Wellens can do a big amount of work on the front that can take this speed longer than 2 or 3 kilometers or 4 or 5, and this climb is 5.5. But as Tim Wellens is on the front for a K and a half right now, we're going to see Tadej Pogačar start sliding up the left side with Jonathan Narvaez. They're going to slot in about 10th position, and then we're going to start seeing Tadej Pogačar as he wipes his nose real quick. You're going to see his hand come up in the left side there of your screen, right hand there of Tadej Pogačar. That means he's telling Narvaez, come to the front right now and take me to the up to the last 9 positions here, because he knows Tim Wellens must be getting ready to blow. Just before Tim Wellens is getting ready to blow, we see Jasper Philipsen is getting dropped, so last year's winner has no chance of winning Milan-Sanremo in 2025. But Mathieu van der Poel is still in a fine position with Filippo Ganna. Now, once we go up a little bit further, once we see the cameras again come to the front of the peloton, that is, Tim Wellens starts to blow, and we're at 4 kilometers to go. Once Tim Wellens blows, and we got 4 kilometers left here on the Cipressa, Narvaez hits the front as it started to slow up. As Narvaez hits the front, look as we see Mathieu van der Poel and we see Filippo Ganna both look over to their left to see Narvaez hitting hard, and we'll see Matteo Trentin looking over to the right, as everyone knows the MO right now of Jonathan Narvaez and Tadej Pogačar. As they start to hit out, once I backed the film up just a hair before they did, with Tim Wellens on the front, it was starting to blow up. I'll call it 40, 50 guys, but Del Toro was way back there at the back of the group just making the split as the peloton was blowing up. So now you got the picture of what Narvaez has to do, because there is no Del Toro close by. Tim Wellens already blew up, and there's no other UAE team member that's wearing a jersey up here in the front group. So as we see Narvaez hitting hard, he's throwing everything into it as he's coming out of the corners, full sprint. It's causing chaos back there as everything's starting to blow up. And we're going to see that Tadej Pogačar hits off the wheel of Jonathan Narvaez with about 3 kilometers to go. Once he throws in the tack, oh man, things are starting to blow up, because we're going to see Filippo Ganna, we're going to see Mathieu van der Poel, and Gregoire holding on for dear life. As those 3 guys are holding on, Filippo Ganna cannot close the gap up to Tadej Pogačar, so Mathieu van der Poel has to close the gap up to the Slovenian. As he's closing the gap up, the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar looks back over his shoulder and sees everyone's hurting, throws in another acceleration, and Filippo Ganna is gapped. Gregoire's gapped too, and Gregoire's going to come off the wheel of Filippo Ganna. That means there's 2 riders in the front, so Tadej Pogačar's throwing down. When I'm sitting on the Chesterfield right now, I'm thinking, I don't know. I think I want Filippo Ganna and Mathieu van der Poel with me when we go over the top of the Cipressa, because you still have to go down the descent and through the coast. But Tadej Pogačar wants to get rid of Filippo Ganna and Mathieu van der Poel as he's throwing in big accelerations. Now, Filippo Ganna struggling hard to get back on. He'll close the gap up with 2 kilometers to go, and then Tadej Pogačar with 1.5 throws in another attack. If I back the film up just a hair, I'll show you that Mathieu van der Poel was on the front for just a few moments until Tadej Pogačar threw in another attack. With this attack, we see that Filippo Ganna is again gapped off, but again the time trial specialist is digging deep to come back on at 900 meters to go. Once he's on, we see Mathieu van der Poel and Tadej Pogačar taking pulls all the way to the top of the Cipressa, with one Filippo Ganna holding on to the back wheel. They have 3 riders here at Milan-Sanremo with about a 32-second gap on the rest of the peloton behind. When we look at the guys chasing back there, there's 18 riders chasing, and Del Toro has now moved himself up to the second, third position of the riders chasing as they brought back Gregoire from FDJ. Now, we go back up front. We're starting the descent. I'm listening to the commentators try to tell me that the weakness that Tadej Pogačar has in his arsenal is going downhill. He doesn't have a weakness going downhill. Has he crashed going downhill? We've all crashed going downhill, guys. But I have never seen Tadej Pogačar drop going down a hill unless he's actually crashed. And if you want to take me back to Milan-Sanremo when Matej Mohoric won Milan-Sanremo, I'll just show you the motorcycle that was in front of Matej Mohoric that pulled him away from the favorites back there that were playing a tactical game too. So at this moment, I call their BS talking about Tadej Pogačar can't go downhill as we see him railing through all the lefts and the right turns, dropping down the Cipressa, and he's drilling it, adding time on the chasers behind and causing Filippo Ganna from Team Ineos to get gapped off and then have to close the gap to get gapped off again and close again. Now as we come out on the coast, the three riders, Tadej Pogačar pulled all the way down the descent. But now it's time to see who's got big balls, right? Is it Mathieu van der Poel? Can Filippo Ganna come through and take pulls along this 9-kilometer give or take section here on the coast? Well, all three riders work flawlessly together. Now I'm thinking, if I'm Filippo Ganna, I don't know if I want to pull with Tadej Pogačar. But if I do, I'm going to just fake it and do a softest pull as I possibly can because I know Filippo Ganna is a talent, especially when he's on form, and you know he's on form right now, but we've already seen him dropped on the Cipressa, so you don't want to pull too much and then get into the Poggio and get yourself dropped. If you're Mathieu van der Poel, well, you're a first-page rider too, so you make your own choice right now. So Mathieu van der Poel's doing hard pulls, Tadej Pogačar is doing pulls, Filippo Ganna, I would say, is doing the easier of the pulls. When we look back at the peloton back there chasing these guys as the gap's starting to extend out to about 40 seconds, we'll see that Tom Pidcock comes back on as they hit the coast to close the gap there for the British rider. Then some other riders come on. Then some more riders. Next thing you know, we got about 40 riders, if not 50 riders back there as it's getting bigger and bigger. And the time gap's going out to about a minute to the 3 leaders in front. Now we're coming up to about 9 kilometers to go, which means it's time to turn off the coast because we're starting the Poggio. Once the riders up front, the 3 of them turn off to make the right turn to start the Poggio proper. It's a quick little right-left shimmy, shimmy as the riders start the Poggio. And then Tadej Pogačar throws in attack with Mathieu van der Poel on the front. Tadej Pogačar explodes on the pedals. Mathieu van der Poel jumps on him right away as Tadej Pogačar's flying through the corner. You can hear him hit the brakes. They're going so fast, their disc brakes are squealing as they're coming through the right turn here. Tadej Pogačar explodes out of the right turn. We look at Filippo Ganna. He's getting gapped off about 8-9 seconds, but the Italian rider is still not calling it a day here at Milan-Sanremo as he's suffering. Remember, at this moment, the 2 riders up front could call each other's bluff at any moment, so Filippo Ganna has to dig deep. Tadej Pogačar puts in attacks after attacks. When he gets up to his 5th attack, he throws in a massive one. Then we're at about 500 meters to go. Mathieu van der Poel throws in his attack at the top of the Poggio with 500 meters to go. Got a gap on Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar squeezing and fighting to try to bring him back. But this is not like the attack at 200 meters ago, 2 years ago, when Mathieu van der Poel won going over the top of the Poggio, because Tadej Pogačar scratching to bring him back at about 200 meters to go. So both riders are together. We look at Filippo Ganna. He's still back there at about 15 seconds as the 2 riders up front are going over the top of the Poggio, starting the left turn to start the crazy descent. We'll see Mathieu van der Poel doing pulls down the descent. Tadej Pogačar is doing pulls down the descent. Filippo Ganna is back there sprinting as much as he possibly can out of every corner, trying to scratch his way back up to the 2 leaders, but holding about a 8 to 15 second gap back there. As he's still gapped off, he has him in sights through some corners when he comes out, and other ones he doesn't. But Filippo Ganna still not quitting. Now they come into the coast with about 2.2 kilometers to go. As they come onto the coast, Tadej Pogačar and Mathieu van der Poel are still working to hold off Filippo Ganna and back there. I'm sitting on the Chesterfield and I'm yelling at Tadej Pogačar. You want Filippo Ganna. You cannot beat Mathieu van der Poel one-on-one. You're going to need some kind of tactical game. You have to let Filippo Ganna come back into the picture so you can start playing tactics and 1-2-ing Mathieu van der Poel with Filippo Ganna attacking and then Tadej Pogačar attacking him, because you cannot come to the line with Mathieu van der Poel. But to my disbelief, Tadej Pogačar is doing pull for pull up front with Mathieu van der Poel, and at 1 kilometer to go, Tadej Pogačar still on the front. Mathieu van der Poel rotates through on the front as we come through the final corners here at Milan-Sanremo, about 700 meters to go. And then we see Filippo Ganna has closed back onto the group to give us 3 riders in the front group right now. Anybody can win. Mathieu van der Poel's the fastest. Tadej Pogačar is the best rider in the world. Filippo Ganna just needs a gap, and you know he can hold anybody off if there's some tactical help. Now Mathieu van der Poel starts taking the front of the group here. We see Tadej Pogačar at about 500 meters to go. He backs off for the second position to let Filippo Ganna in second. Once he backs off, he keeps continuing to back off. He wants to get that attack, that slingshot attack. But each of the riders in front, Mathieu van der Poel and Filippo Ganna, keep looking back. We come into about 350 meters to go. Filippo Ganna moves from the right side of the road all the way over to the left and looks over his shoulder. As he looks over his shoulder at about 300 meters to go, Filippo Ganna immediately looks over his shoulder to the left to see where Tadej Pogačar is, because both those riders know Tadej Pogačar's been drifting off the back and getting ready to attack. So Mathieu van der Poel throws in the first acceleration from the front of the group on the left side of the road with just about 300 meters to go. Massive acceleration. Now Filippo Ganna has to jump from the right side to the center of the road to try to get on the back wheel of Mathieu van der Poel. Mathieu van der Poel's going full gas. You see the grimace in his face along with Tadej Pogačar. Then his head goes down. Then we see the grimace of the face there of Filippo Ganna as he's trying to close the gap back up to Mathieu van der Poel. But Mathieu van der Poel's throwing everything into it with the head down, the head popping up. And then with 10 meters to go, Mathieu van der Poel sits up and celebrates his second victory here at Milan-Sanremo, the third for Alpecin de Koenig. Just on his wheel, two bike lengths back actually from his wheel is going to be Filippo Ganna for Team Ineos getting second, and Tadej Pogačar will round out the podium here at the 25 Milan-Sanremo for nothing less than a spectacular effort from Tadej Pogačar. Mathieu van der Poel took his second win. Filippo Ganna, man, you just never gave up. You were amazing. Tip of the hat to all 3 of the riders. Now, tactically, what would I have done different? I don't know if there's much I would have done different, with the exception that with Tadej Pogačar, once you got that 3-rider split, I don't think I would have kept attacking when we're talking about going up to Cipressa. He put the fastest time on Strava record up the Cipressa with 1 second under 9 minutes. They were shooting for 9 minutes. Well, they got 8 minutes and 59 seconds, so he's got the Strava record. So he did break something today, but I don't know if he need to go that hard once he got the 3 riders together. Keep them together, work along the coast, save the energy, try to match everybody's energy and don't do more. Remember, he rode the whole descent on the front going down the Cipressa, and then to my eyes looked like he did a little bit more work along the coast. That might have made the difference, but maybe not, because Mathieu van der Poel was something exceptional today, regardless of how Tadej Pogačar rode, even though I think Tadej Pogačar could have did a few things different. In the end, they were minor details. It was a spectacular race here. A classic of all classics of Milan-Sanremo, no doubt, and will go down in history as one of the best ones ever. Like and subscribe, guys. I will see you for the next big races for the Butterfly Effect. So hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys real soon.